I tried to fulfill my duty as a son, but ultimately lost the woman I loved. Some burdens life places on us aren't about money or career. They're about love and filial piety. I once believed I could carry it all, fulfill my duties as a son, and still hold on to the woman I cherished. But then, life taught me a bitter lesson sometimes. The greatest sacrifice isn't giving, but realizing that no matter how hard you try, you can't have both. Hello there. I hope all is well with you. Today, I want to tell you another story, one that doesn't revolve around cultural or financial troubles, but rather a much quieter battle, a battle that took place right in my own home, where duty and love tore each other apart. It's a story about family, sacrifice, and the price you pay when you stand between the two most important women in your life. My name is Daniel, 42, an accountant for a large company in Seattle. My life until now had been quite calm, perhaps a bit subdued. I liked stability, clear numbers, and a life without too many upheavals. I'm an only child. My father passed away early, when I was just 20, leaving my mother, Evelyn, to face life alone. She was a strong, resilient woman who sacrificed her youth to raise and educate me. She worked many different jobs, from seamstress to street vendor, just to ensure I had enough books for school, enough food and clothes. I was always infinitely grateful for and loved my mother, considering her care my most sacred duty in life. She lived alone in our old house in the suburbs until she fell and broke her hip 2 years ago. That was a huge shock, not just to her health, but also a fateful turning point that completely changed my life and Jenna's. My wife, Jenna, and I had been married for 10 years. 10 years isn't that long, but it was enough for us to understand each other with every breath, every glance. Jenna is an amazing woman. She works in graphic design, has an artistic soul and a kind heart. She loved rainy afternoons spent drawing and volunteer trips helping animals. She had a radiant smile like morning sunshine and expressive eyes. Our married life had no children, no extravagance, no pursuit of fleeting material values. We just had each other. Quiet evenings with a good movie, weekend hikes in the nearby park, and two kindred spirits who found peace in each other. Our love wasn't boisterous, it was a deep understanding, a rare harmony. I loved Jenna for her gentleness, her intelligence, and especially her independent thinking. She was my solid rock, the life partner I had always dreamed of. Life flowed on peacefully, until my mother moved in with us. It was unavoidable. After her hip fracture, my mother needed 24/7 care. The doctor made it clear she couldn't live alone anymore. Her ability to care for herself was almost gone. The decision to bring my mother home was obvious to me. It didn't require any thought. I was her only son, and I couldn't let my mother suffer loneliness or lack of care in her final days. I thought Jenna would understand, and we would get through this phase together. I was too optimistic, too naive to think it would be that simple. I had forgotten that while family is our root, sometimes those roots can also become chains, tightening around you, stripping away your freedom and even the happiness you have. One person's happiness can sometimes be another's burden. Initially, Jenna agreed without hesitation. I still remember the look in her eyes when I mentioned bringing Mom home. Not a hint of discomfort, not a moment of doubt. She understood I was an only child, and she also cared for my mother. She had spent time visiting my mother at the hospital every afternoon after work, bringing fruit and chatting with her, helping her comb her hair, clean her face. "Mom needs us, Daniel," she had said, holding my hand tightly, her voice calm and full of empathy. "Don't worry, I'll help you take good care of her. We're family." Those words were like a tranquilizer for me, dispelling my initial worries. I trusted Jenna completely, trusted her generosity and love. I thought everything would be fine. We were a family, and we would overcome every difficulty together. I thought our love was big enough to encompass my mother's entire world, but we didn't realize that caring for the elderly was a completely new life, a world neither of us had ever stepped into. It wasn't just about worrying about health, it was a persistent battle with time, with energy, and with psychology. My mother, though her mind was still sharp, sometimes surprisingly cunning, had become very weak physically. She was almost entirely dependent on others. She needed help moving around, from bed to bathroom, from living room to kitchen. Every step required someone to guide her, slowly and carefully. She needed assistance with personal hygiene, from daily bathing to changing clothes, to even the smallest things like combing her hair or clipping her nails. She had difficulty eating, needed constant reminders to finish her meal, sometimes spoon-fed because she no longer had the strength to hold her own bowl and chopsticks. More importantly, there was the medication, one heart pill in the morning, one blood pressure pill at noon, painkillers in the afternoon, and a sedative in the evening. Missing even one dose could have serious consequences. And the greatest fear, the unspoken secret that neither Jenna nor I dared mention, was the nights. My mother suffered from sleepless nights. She frequently coughed and had difficulty breathing due to chronic lung disease. Every dry cough, every gasp, every small sound in the night, even her turning in bed, would startle Jenna and me awake. In the first few nights, I tried to stay awake with Jenna, taking turns getting up to check on Mom, to see if she needed anything, but gradually, the pressure of daytime work exhausted me. I slept more deeply. And Jenna, with her meticulous and more anxious nature, became the primary night watch. I heard her stealthily getting up in the middle of the night, the soft footsteps going into Mom's room, whispered reassurances, the sound of pouring water. Then came Mom's voice talking to herself in the night, sometimes lamenting her old age, sometimes mixed with dreams and reality. Jenna would sit beside Mom, listening to those words until Mom fell back asleep. It was a tremendous psychological burden, an erosion of strength and spirit that I could only imagine. Jenna, who worked remotely with a graphic design job requiring high concentration and creativity, naturally became the primary caregiver every day. When I was at the office, my job required me to be at the company from morning to evening, and often necessitated overtime to meet deadlines. I left home at 7 a.m. and usually returned at 7 or 8 p.m. During that entire time, Jenna was the only one at home with my mother. She had to balance designing complex layouts, participating in online meetings with clients from all over the world, and constantly running around caring for Mom. Video calls with clients were frequently interrupted by my mother's coughs, or calls of Jenna from the living room asking for help. Once, I called home in the middle of the afternoon, heard Jenna breathing heavily, her voice full of tension. "Sorry, I have to end this call. She needs me again." I knew she had to stop work to run and help my mother go to the bathroom, get her medicine, or simply pour her a glass of water, then return to her computer screen with a tired face, trying to refocus. Sometimes, she could only work late at night, after my mother was asleep and everything was quiet, but by then she was too exhausted to be creative. I saw the light in her study shining through the night, like a flickering lamp about to go out. Gradually, she became exhausted. I saw it clearly day by day. Jenna's glossy hair became more brittle, often hastily tied up. Her eyes were perpetually dark-rimmed and sleep-deprived. Tired lines were deeply etched on her face, and the small wrinkles at the corners of her eyes were now more pronounced. The radiant smile that used to be constantly on her lips had completely vanished, replaced by a permanent tired expression, sometimes blank. Our conversations became brief, mainly revolving around my mother's health, new medications, or how much she ate that day. Our quiet evenings were now filled with sounds, the occasional whirring of my mother's breathing machine in the night, her turning in bed, my stealthily preparing her night milk. Our small house, once a cozy nest for two, filled with jazz music and intimate conversations, had now become a miniature hospital, with the sounds and smells of medicine, disinfectants, and the scent of exhaustion, of shattered dreams. I tried to help Jenna whenever I could. After work, I bathed my mother, changed her diapers, and stayed up with Jenna when my mother had trouble sleeping, trying to do whatever I could to share the burden. I told myself, I'm a man. I have to be the pillar. But I knew it was only a small fraction of the burden Jenna carried all day. And through the long nights, I watched her grow tired, and my heart ached. I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. I was the only son, and I felt it was my responsibility to care for my mother. But that responsibility, inadvertently, was pushing my wife to the brink of exhaustion, both physically and mentally. The distance between us grew wider, not because of arguments, but because of the silence of pain, of unspoken sacrifice. It was a deep chasm dug by long, tiring days, sleepless nights, and invisible responsibilities that no one could see but those involved. One evening, as I was helping Jenna tidy up the living room, I saw her staring blankly out the window, where the city lights glittered like endless tears. "Are you very tired, Jenna?" I asked, softly, almost whispering, afraid to break the still atmosphere. She just nodded slightly, not turning to look at me. "I feel like I'm losing myself, Daniel, losing time for my work, for my hobbies, for even the smallest things. I can't remember the last time I painted a picture just to relax. I feel like a machine, only knowing how to work and care." I hugged her from behind, feeling the exhaustion seeping into her every fiber, into her very soul. I wished I could do more, but I knew my job didn't allow me to be home more. And my mother, she needed Jenna much more than me for daily care because she needed the meticulousness and patience that only women possess. And a terrifying secret began to sprout in my heart. Jenna was slowly fading away, and I didn't know what to do to keep her. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, watching the person I loved slowly drown, unable to do anything to pull her up. Jenna's exhaustion wasn't just visible in her appearance, it seeped into our most intimate moments, the moments that once were the strongest bond between our two souls. She became quieter, less talkative, less prone to laughter, and rarely initiated conversations with me. The movie nights we once loved now became unsettling silences, with only the TV dialogue and my heavy sighs. She wouldn't lie next to me for more than 10 minutes before turning her back, falling into a heavy, tired sleep. I knew it wasn't alienation, but exhaustion to the point of having no strength left to love, to express, to hold on. She never blamed me, not a single complaint, not a single resentful look. Our conversations now were just clipped questions and answers about my mother's health, but I clearly felt the cracks in every gentle touch, every turned back, every silent meal. In Jenna's lifeless eyes, our love was being suffocated by the whirring of the breathing machine every night, by my mother's coughs, by the faint smell of disinfectant in the air, and by the silence of unspoken sacrifices. One day, as I was trying to hug her from behind in the kitchen, trying to find a bit of familiar warmth and connection, she gently pulled away as if by reflex. "We're not husband and wife anymore, Daniel," she said, her voice eerily calm, yet it pierced my heart like a fatal knife. "I feel like I'm living as a nurse, a full-time caregiver. I'm no longer the Jenna I used to be. I no longer have time to be your wife, to be your lover, to be myself. I'm just a struggling shadow burdened with responsibilities that I don't know when they'll end. I can't sacrifice my entire life to care for your mother like this anymore. I'm tired." Those words hit me like a splash of cold water, waking me from the naive belief that everything was fine. It wasn't an accusation. It was despair. A cry for help suppressed for too long. A secret buried deep within Jenna's soul. "I'll hire help, Jenna," I said hastily, trying to find a solution, a glimmer of hope to salvage everything. "I've thought about it. A part-time helper, or a daytime nurse. They'll come in the morning and leave in the afternoon when I get home from work. You'll have time to rest, time for yourself. We can find our romantic evenings again, our long walks." I thought that was the only solution, the way out for all three of us, a salvation for our marriage on the brink of collapse. I had even researched information about in-home senior care services, contacted several centers to inquire about costs and services. I had everything prepared, ready to act. I spoke to my mother about my intention, carefully choosing my words so she wouldn't feel abandoned or betrayed. I explained Jenna's struggles, my desire to hire help to ease the burden, but my mother vehemently objected, with a stubbornness I had never seen in her. Evelyn had always been an independent woman, and she had an inherent fear of strangers, especially outsiders entering her home. She believed no one could care for her as well as her son, and especially her daughter-in-law, who had been accepted into the family. She said, "You shouldn't trust outsiders, Daniel. They won't be sincere. They'll just do enough to get paid. Besides, I don't want strangers coming in and out of my house. I don't want them to see me in this state. They won't know how to care for me meticulously like Jenna does. Don't waste your money," she added, her eyes looking directly at me, full of accusation and a hint of self-pity, as if I was trying to push her out of my life. "Jenna is my daughter-in-law. Taking care of her mother-in-law is her duty. Is she marrying you just for luxury? Your grandmother also had to care for her mother-in-law. Much harder than this. Now she's much better off than I was. This little thing she complains about. Or does she not want to care for me anymore? Does she want to abandon me?" "Daniel," her words were like an invisible knife stabbing Jenna, but she just remained silent, her gaze distant, not saying a word. I saw Jenna clench her hands, trying to suppress her emotions. That was another one of her secrets, the pain of being misunderstood, of her sacrifice being belittled. Jenna relented again, as always. She looked at me, her eyes full of weariness and exhaustion. Then she nodded slightly, a helpless nod. "All right, Daniel, if Mom isn't comfortable, then never mind." She didn't say another word. No arguments, no debate, just tired acceptance, a heartbreaking resignation. That concession, to me, was more painful than any argument. It showed me that she was too tired to fight, to defend herself anymore. She had given up, accepted her cruel fate, and I knew it was the sign of the end. And with each concession, I gradually lost the wife who had been my companion for 10 years. I slowly lost the woman who had shared every joy and sorrow, who had been my soulmate. She was still there, still meticulously and thoughtfully fulfilling her duties, never uttering a word of complaint, but her soul, her heart, had gradually retreated, becoming distant. I tried to hold her every night, but it felt like holding a ghost, someone vanishing in my arms. I didn't know what to do. On one side was my sacred duty to the mother who bore and raised me, who sacrificed her life for me. On the other was the wife I loved more than life itself, my life partner, my soulmate, the one I had promised to love and protect forever. I felt torn in two, between the two most important women in my life, and I knew I couldn't keep both. This was the most painful secret of my life. I had to choose, even though I didn't want to. And no matter who I chose, someone would be hurt. I remember once, I tried to talk to my mother privately, to help her understand Jenna's situation better, hoping to soften her heart. "Mom, Jenna's been struggling a lot. She needs time for herself, for her work. She looks much thinner. I'm afraid she'll burn out." My mother just looked at me, her eyes full of accusation and a hint of self-pity, as if I was betraying her, defending an outsider. "What are you talking about? Your wife doesn't want to care for me anymore. Does she want to abandon me, Daniel? Or does she look down on me because I'm old and weak? A burden." My mother's words were like a heavy stone on my chest, an inescapable torment. I knew my mother was right according to her beliefs, according to what she had experienced, but I also knew Jenna couldn't bear it anymore. Both were right in their own way, and both were wrong in each other's way. I was trapped in that mess, utterly helpless, like a puppet pulled by two irreconcilable forces. Jenna never complained or blamed me. Her silence was more terrifying than any criticism. She still did everything meticulously, thoughtfully, but without any affection, without a smile or a warm glance. Gentle touches, morning kisses, holding hands on walks, all disappeared. We lived under the same roof, slept in the same bed, but were thousands of miles apart in spirit. I felt like I was watching a loved one slowly die before my eyes, and I couldn't do anything to save it. It was a lingering, ceaseless pain, a wound that would never heal. The atmosphere in the house grew heavier and heavier. Each day was a struggle, a test of Jenna's patience and love. Jenna and I only communicated about necessities related to my mother's care. "Has Mom taken her medicine yet? Did Mom finish her meal? Did Mom cough a lot tonight?" Casual chats, future plans, whispered words of love had vanished as if they had never existed. Both of us lived like shadows, fulfilling duties but no longer emotionally connected. I looked at Jenna each morning, seeing her eyes empty, lifeless, and I knew she was slowly drifting away from me, little by little, even as her body remained beside me. I tried to hold her hand, but her hand now seemed cold and unresponsive, no longer holding the warmth of love, only emptiness. One evening, after a long day of caring for Mom, her coughs echoed continuously through the night, lasting until almost morning. Jenna, after caring for Mom, stepped out of her room, her eyes red, her face pale from lack of sleep, and her body visibly thinner. She suddenly said to me, "I want to visit my parents in Oregon for a few days." Her voice was calm, emotionless, not a hint of anger, but I sensed a strange determination, a frightening coldness in it. I knew she needed space, needed to be free from this suffocating situation. I agreed immediately, though my heart was heavy. I hoped a trip away would help her regain her spirit, help her return to being the Jenna I once loved, my life partner. "Go, Jenna. Get some good rest. I'll take care of Mom. I'll try to find help. Don't worry about anything. You can stay as long as you want. I'll wait for you." Jenna left the next morning. The house became quieter than ever, but that stillness was more terrifying than any noise. No more Jenna's clatter in the kitchen, no more her laughter while watching TV, no more the familiar scent of her perfume in the bedroom. Everything became terrifyingly silent. I took care of my mother myself, and only after a few days did I truly understand the burden Jenna had carried for the past 2 years, the sleepless nights, the diaper changes, the spoon-feeding of meals, the times I had to comfort Mom when she was distraught from nightmares. I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. I understood then. I understood why Jenna said she was living like a nurse. I understood that I had inadvertently let her carry too great a burden that I, with my own job and pressures, couldn't fully share. I knew what I had to do. That was my mother. But I also knew I couldn't carry it alone. Forever. Loneliness enveloped me, a loneliness I had never known before. When Jenna was still here, the house was filled with the silence of loss. When Jenna returned a week later, she carried a different look in her eyes, tired but resolute, a frightening coldness. Her face was still pale, but her eyes, instead of being blank, now held a sharp, cold glint, an unwavering, non-negotiable determination. She didn't say much, just carried her luggage into the bedroom, placing it neatly in a corner, no longer arranging her small decorative items as before. I felt an invisible distance encompassing her, an insurmountable barrier. She was like a stone statue, still there, but no longer the wife I once loved. That evening, after my mother had fallen asleep in the next room, her steady breathing echoed through the door like a constant reminder of my responsibility. Jenna sat opposite me in the living room, the dim light barely illuminating her solemn face. I knew it was time to face the truth, a truth I had tried to avoid all this time. "Daniel," she began, her voice calm, without a trace of anger, yet it resonated like a bell in my ears. "I love your mother. I truly cherish her, and I know how much you love her. I tried my best, more than I thought I could. I did everything with all my heart, with all the love I had for you and your family, but I can't lose myself anymore. I can't live like a nurse, a caregiver, with no time, no energy for myself, for my work, for you. I'm no longer Jenna, Daniel. I'm just a struggling shadow burdened with responsibilities that I don't know when they'll end. I can't sacrifice my entire life to care for your mother like this anymore. I'm tired. I need to live my own life." Those words hit me like a splash of cold water, waking me from the naive belief that everything was fine. It wasn't an accusation, it was despair. A cry for help suppressed for too long, a secret buried deep within Jenna's soul. "I'll hire help. Jenna, I'll try to persuade Mom. I'll take care of Mom more myself. I'll hire a night nurse. You'll get enough sleep. I'll do everything for you to rest. Please don't go. Please. Let's find a way to get through this together." My voice was hoarse, pleading, carrying all the fear of loss, all the surging regret. I felt terrible, so useless for letting her suffer alone for so long. Jenna looked at me, her eyes full of sadness but unwavering. A single tear quietly rolled down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. "It's too late. Daniel, how many times have we talked about this? How many times have you promised you know your mother won't agree, and you can't abandon her? I understand. I don't blame you. I never blamed you for a single word. I only blame myself for being too weak to bear it anymore. But I can't live like this anymore. I can't live a life without myself, without peace, without joy. I can't continue to deceive myself that everything will be fine. I'm depleted. Daniel, depleted of everything." She spoke each word slowly, clearly, as if reading a death sentence for our marriage. The most heartbreaking secret was revealed. Not an affair, not a dark financial secret, not a betrayal, but the emotional exhaustion of a woman who had tried so hard she had nothing left to give, nothing left to hold on to. It was the secret of a love that had slowly died because of duty, because of unreciprocated sacrifice, because of a severe imbalance. I looked at her, and I knew. This was the end. Our love could not survive the battle of duty. Jenna left a month later. During that time, she lived in almost complete silence, only fulfilling her duties to my mother and finishing her remaining work. She spent most of her time in her study, typing, and seemed to have stopped caring about anything else. I tried to talk, tried to hold on, tried to take her out to dinner, for walks, but all my words seemed meaningless, every effort gently rejected by her. She had made up her mind. There was no resentment, no loud arguments, no bitter divorce words or sentimental tears, just the quiet departure of someone who was exhausted from trying to love more when their heart no longer had room for love or false hopes. She picked up her suitcase, hugged me tightly, for a long time. A hug full of love but also full of letting go, like a final unspoken goodbye. I felt the tremor in her embrace, the warmth of her body, but also an immense distance. "Please take good care of your mother, Daniel, and take care of yourself too. I hope you find happiness, and I will too." Those were the last words she said to me before stepping out the door. And that door closed, closing a decade of love and sharing, closing the most beautiful chapter of my life. I stood watching the door close, feeling like a part of my soul was also crushed by that door, leaving an unfillable void in my heart. Our house suddenly became vast and empty. No more Jenna's clatter in the kitchen, no more her laughter while watching TV, no more the familiar scent of her perfume in the bedroom. Everything became terrifyingly silent. Only the steady breathing of my mother and the shattering of my heart. I knew I still had to care for her. That was my mother. But I also knew I couldn't carry it alone. Forever. Loneliness enveloped me, a loneliness I had never known before. When Jenna was still here, the house was filled with the silence of loss. My mother passed away the following year, after a long battle with illness, and the loneliness she felt after Jenna had left. She passed peacefully in her sleep, holding my hand, with a contented smile on her lips, as if she had completed her mission. I had fulfilled my final duty as a son, staying by my mother's side until her last breath. After my mother passed, only I remained in the house, along with two figures who were once close, now both memories, indelible pain. One was the mother who gave her life to me. One was the wife I loved more than life itself. Both vanished from my life, and I was left with ultimate loneliness in my own home, amidst cold walls. I realized that in that battle for love and duty, no one was wrong, but everyone lost. I lost my wife, my mother lost Jenna's dedicated care, and Jenna herself lost a part of herself in the process, leaving scars that may never heal. The sacred debt to my mother had been paid, but the price was my entire marriage, and perhaps a part of my heart that went numb. I looked back at old photos of Jenna and me, her radiant smiles, her eyes sparkling with love, those simple happy moments that now seemed incredibly distant, like a dream that would never return. Now, everything is just memories, beautiful but agonizing memories, reminding me of a love that couldn't overcome the burden of duty, a love that was crushed under the wheels of responsibility. My life from then on has been quiet days, with an unfillable emptiness, an infinite regret. I learned to live alone, learned to accept the painful truth that I couldn't keep both. I wondered if there was another path, if I could have done something differently, if I could have made a different choice to save everything, but I knew. The answer was no. I had done my best, and perhaps this was my fate. I tried to be the most dutiful son, but failed to be the best husband. And that is the greatest tragedy of my life. Sometimes, I wonder if Jenna is happier now, if she has found herself again. I hope so. I hope she has found peace, found joy in the life she had to give up to care for my mother. As for me, I'm still here, in this house, with indelible memories and pain. That's the price of choice, a price too high. Caring for parents is a sacred duty, an undeniable debt that every child must repay with all their heart, time, and effort. But if you don't know how to maintain balance, if you don't recognize your own limits and those of your partner, if there isn't shared understanding and empathy from all sides, it can sweep away another sacred thing. Marriage, love, personal happiness, values we must cultivate throughout our lives. Sometimes, it's not that you chose wrong, but that you couldn't have both. Life forces you to make a cruel decision, and then you have to live with regret and emptiness for the rest of your life, carrying scars that never heal. I tried to do everything I could, but I failed to keep the two most important women in my life. I learned a costly lesson sometimes. Prioritizing duty above all else can make you lose the most precious things in your life, things you might regret forever. Remember, love also needs care, cultivation, and space to breathe. It needs understanding and sharing. Don't let invisible burdens suffocate your happiness. Don't let unconscious expectations destroy the most beautiful things you have. This is my story, a cautionary tale for anyone facing difficult choices between duty and love. Everyone has a different situation, a different story, but the lesson of balance is something we all need to learn. If this story touched your heart, or if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Please hit like and share this story so others can also learn from it, so they don't have to experience the pain I went through. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next dramatic and meaningful stories I'll bring to you. Thank you for listening, and please cherish what you have before it's too late. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.